Hey, welcome to Weekend Growth and welcome to our case study on taking a purchased website to around $9,000 a month in revenue. My name is Jared Bauman and I'll be walking you through the process we went on over the course of just over 2 years to get the website to where it is right now. We'll go through everything from the purchase criteria, how the website kind of landed in our lap, if you will. We'll talk through the stuff we had to do at the very beginning when we first acquired the site. It was an old site. It had a lot of tech debt and we went through a lot of repairs. We'll walk through deleting content and how we got rid of a vast majority of the content on the site because it just wasn't relevant. And then the plan we set out to grow the site, ranging from the content that we published, how we published it, how we researched it, the content velocity we went on. We'll talk through a lot of the different ways that we monetized and experimented with monetization on this website. And then I'll share with you kind of a quarter by quarter breakdown of what ended up happening so you can see the results of the efforts we put in. And hopefully all those bits of information will help you out with your website, a website you might purchase down the road, or maybe help you grow a website that you've already purchased. Keep in mind, a lot of these strategies, it doesn't matter whether you purchased a website or not. What matters is the strategies that are used. So a lot of them apply, even if you're just growing your own website. Hope you enjoy. All right, let's talk through this case study here and walk through the details of it. So again, this is a case study on how we took a purchased website from, it was making about $2,000 a month, and we got it to just under $10,000 a month. I think we broke the $9,000 mark during the Q4 season. This is not a site that we were pursuing. So it wasn't like we got up one day as a company and said, hey, we want to make a purchase for our website. We're looking for these qualifications. We're looking for this niche. We're looking for these types of things. This website truly found us. Again, we were working as an agency and we were helping a website. We got hired to help a website through what we would call a site migration. They were going from one theme and plugin stack to another one. It was a big upgrade for them. This website had, I think, about 4,000 articles at the time, a lot of pages, a lot of authors on this site. It was a pretty, robust website. And so not huge by any standards, but it wasn't something that just your average single site operator who didn't have a background in technical work would know how to make a migration for. And so they hired us to make the site migration. And throughout that process, I got to know the owner of the site, and we would, chit chat as fellow business owners. He, towards the end, realized exactly how much exactly how much was involved in running the day-to-day of a website. It's not a substantial amount, right? We kind of all know that. Like, you can kind of set the website up for success, but it was for someone who doesn't have any bearing on that. They were able to realize that there's a lot going on behind the scenes to set a website up for success, technically speaking. And also came to realize, because a lot of our reporting came back as we were making the site ready for migration, like, this site had a tremendous amount of, what we would call tech debt, right? This tech debt is something that comes with an aged site, an old site, and it, over time, through people installing various plugins, through people making various switches, through people kind of daisy chaining and band-aiding things together. You talk about that over the course of what now is over 15 years. Well, this site had a tremendous amount of tech debt, and it was going to need to be resolved at some point. And so the owner asked me point blank towards the end of the process if I wanted to purchase the site. Again, a lot of a real gap in the understanding of tech, and then also the tremendous amount of tech debt the site had. This site owner was looking at possibly moving on from it. Again, we had become friends, so he knew that, we on the side started sites, bought sites, sold sites, monetized them for monthly cash flow. And so we were able to come to an agreement. We got a pretty good deal on the site. And so we were able to purchase it for, again, about the mid 5 figures there is what the site ended up landing on. So again, we always start with a SWOT analysis, and SWOT is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I really advocate heavily for starting with a SWOT analysis when you pick up a new site. And the reason is because it's so tempting. Trust me, I just want to roll up my sleeves, man. As soon as I get those new logins for the WordPress account, I just want to roll up my sleeves and I want to start fixing things. I want to start publishing new content. And not that that would be a bad move, but the reality is that without a plan, you don't know where you're going to end up, and you can really put your efforts to better use if you have a focused plan. So we evaluated this site, and here was the SWOT analysis that came back. So we had our strengths here. This was a well-established domain that had been around since the mid-2000s, and that gave it almost 20 years of age. And age is a factor in terms of how much Google does trust websites. Obviously, if there was a lot of bad things that that site engaged in throughout the 20 years, for example, then it wouldn't have a lot of trust in it. But the age alone is a trust factor and does help. And this website had never really been involved in anything negative. We did look at it through archive.org. We did peruse it quite heavily to make sure that it hadn't been involved in anything. It also had a fantastic niche relevant backlink profile. So you'll see it was in the the DR was in the mid 50s. DR is a domain rating. That's a measure by Ahrefs. There's one by Moz. These are all third-party metrics, right? But they do give you a bit of an idea for how strong the domain is. And really, as it relates to the backlink profile, that's certainly what Ahrefs metric looks at. And when you dove into the backlink profile, over time, this website had just accrued quite a good number of not just good links, right? You can see DR56s or DR60s and DR70s with good backlink profiles. But the other important thing was that it had niche relevant backlinks. And we've just found such a strong correlation to a website's ability to rank over time, withstand updates and whatnot. If there are backlinks that are relevant to the niche they're in, they really establish that authority in your niche. So this had all of that. Weaknesses. I touched on the first one, so I won't go into depth, but no one had ever paid attention to the tech of the site. So there was a myriad of tech issues, which we'll get into. Thousands of articles were out of date and got very, very little organic traffic. This is that classic case of a website that had, I think, around 4,000 articles when we bought it. And ranking-wise, there were, under 1% of them ranked for much of anything. That was going to be a huge problem for us, right? We were not buying a site with a ton of organic traffic. And certainly when you looked at the traffic that was coming organically, it was isolated to a handful articles. So opportunities. Well, hey, we could update that old content to be optimized for search, right? They've been aged. They've been out there for a while. There's 4,000 of them. There's got to be a couple of gold mines in there. We can publish optimized content and do so for more evergreen topics, right? As you'll come to find out, that's the main reason why that those 4,000 articles weren't ranking. They weren't about topics that had search intent. They also weren't evergreen. They weren't going to last past the initial inflection point or question. We could add affiliate links and publish monetized posts. At this time, there was no affiliate content on the website. We could add an ad partner like a Mediavine, an AdThrive, an Ezoic, and use that to generate revenue from organic traffic. And then we could revitalize this email list it came with. It came with one, but it was not being used properly, which we'll go into. And we could revitalize that and put it to good use. Well, what are some threats? So threats are really, what are some things that could cause this plan, this website in this case, to not work out? Well, we knew there were tech repairs, but as you know, when you start making tech repairs, sometimes they snowball. And so the cost of the tech repairs might outweigh the revenue that we could generate from the improvements. It's just kind of ROI, right? Like, does the return on our investment, does it play out? Does it make sense? Another threat is that the affiliate opportunities might not be very lucrative, right? Like sending a whole bunch of traffic to Amazon Associates does not really get me excited. And we saw affiliate opportunities with private affiliate networks, but you never really know how well they're going to work out unless you have previous experience in them or unless you test them. Hard to test that when you're in the middle of buying the site, right? So at the time we bought, the site was making money, but only by selling advertising to vendors in that niche. So it brought in around $2,000 at the time of sale. I didn't mention this earlier, but we did mitigate those upfront technical costs we knew we were going to have, and by putting a down payment and then spreading monthly payments over the course of 1 year. And so that was another thing I just want to encourage you to think through is, hey, we're very used to, if you go buy a site on a brokerage, you got to put the majority, usually the deal is strongly favored to putting all cash down. With some of the bigger deals, you can negotiate a down payment and then a future payout. But usually that down payment is really high, like 80, 85, 90%. You can go get a loan, SBA loan, but when it's a private deal, it just opens the doors a lot more to creating kind of a win-win type of down payment and payment situation. When we buy sites from individuals, which we do a decent amount, we'd like to go this route because cash, in running a business, cash is king, right? I won't get into how to run a business, but in this case, we were able to, it's not like we weren't going to end up paying it. We were, but we were able to amortize that payment after we had spent the energy, the money on the tech repairs. Yes, the tech repairs are going to be handled by our 201 Creative team, but it's still a cost associated with that. And we were basically able to use cash we might have put for the down payment or might have paid for the website to get those repairs done. Getting those repairs done meant the site could start earning money sooner, and then we could use that money that we're earning to pay down the future payments, right? So not trying to over leverage, but trying to understand how cash flow works and maybe use it to a bit of our advantage. And that's one of the benefits of a private deal, that you can have a lot more flexibility on. All right, where to start? I talked about coming up with a plan, a SWOT analysis. We did the SWOT analysis, and that's at that point when we were able to start our 2 flagship evaluation reports that we do for most of the businesses that we work with. And it's no different. We do them because this is what we do, right? Like, this is what we recommend to our clients because this is what we do. We do a technical site audit, and we do a strategic content plan. So a site audit really looks at the way things are, and a content plan looks at the way or the direction we want to go. So the site audit is about, hey, where's the website right now? And then the content plan is really about where we're going. It's not entirely true, right? Because the tech site audit is looking most at the technical components of the website, and the content plan does look at where the content is ranking right now. But it's mostly focused on where we're going to go, right? It's a plan. Whereas the audit is an audit. It's a look at things now. So we knew the site had a lot of tech debt, but again, weren't really prepared for the amount of tech debt. Our audits look at, from a high level, 4 main areas: technical health of the website, the speed of the website, all the content on the website, and then the links on the website. They're pretty darn comprehensive, I'll tell you. If you're interested in a site audit or learning more about that from us, I'll include a link down in the notes there. Here's a screenshot of just some of the things that came out of that audit, right? And this is in our Asana task list. I actually went back a couple years ago and found all of the tasks. This is only the beginning, right? I think there was like over 100 tasks that came out of it. So when you purchase a website that's 2 decades old, you're going to inherit this. We knew that. It's part of the benefit of getting an older site that maybe hasn't been paid attention to. If it hasn't been paid attention to, you can usually pay a lower price because it's not earning what it could earn. But at the same time, you're going to have to understand that, hey, there's probably a reason for that. And so we knew there's going to be a lot of tech debt. We'll get into all the fixes that we made, or at least the high level ones, but boy, was there. Strategic content plan. I love these. The audits are fun, but the content plans are even better. So the big problem with this website, and we talked about the 4,000 posts that were on the site, or whatever it was somewhere of that nature, and they were written in true like blogger style from the mid 2000s, right? And that was before we really had social media. And so the way that you published content back then is you would kind of go on and post about something that was happening in the industry. And the reality is the article is pretty short. And this is what we saw. The article would be 200-300 words about a trending topic, not an evergreen topic, about a trending topic. So already we have thin content, and we have short form answers to topics that are no longer relevant. And then really the discussion was the value of this blog post, because people would come comment on it, much like you would like a Facebook post in a Facebook group, right? That's exactly the type of articles we were seeing, but they weren't really articles, right? And they weren't written about anything that people were looking for. So we were really, we got this evaluation back and saw that that we really had our work cut out for us, because we had a lot of content we're going to need to delete. So our content plans, they audit the existing content. They look at competitor analysis. We rip apart what all the competitors are doing that are winning. We look at a backlink gap analysis. So what backlinks our website has, what backlinks the competitors have, and what we need to do to get there. We analyze every piece of content that's on the website, and we recommend what to do with each piece of content. So every URL either gets a recommendation for deleting, for article update and improving the content, or keeping as is. And then we have in-depth keyword research and topical silo research for future content that we're going to publish. So again, if you need any help with that, you can reach out. I included a note to or a URL to learn more about our content plans at 201 Creative. All right, let's get going on the fixes. So the technical fixes, we immediately set out to fix, kind of like the more standard ones you'd expect. We needed to fix up some canonicalization issues between the HTTP and the HTTPS. We had a lot of redirect chains. We had to remove a bunch of links to 404 pages and add meta descriptions. Because we deleted a bunch of content out of the gate, like that was just ranking for nothing, wasn't going to ever go anywhere. We then ended up having a lot of internal links to these 404 pages, right? Or what ended up being 410 pages, to be honest. But so we had a lot of those immediate fixes, and you'll see if you do a site audit in like Ahrefs or Screaming Frog, like you'll get some really immediate wins back. Hey, go fix this, go fix that. So we did all that right out of the gate. The hosting was really bad. We were getting a lot of 500 server errors, and they were making their way all the way into Google Search Console. Sometimes you'll see some 500 errors that'll hit, and that's a few here and a few there aren't the end of the world. But if they're actually making their way over into like a GSC platform, or you're seeing them really consistently over and over again, that's a problem. So we did move this site over to Kinsta, and we do recommend Kinsta to a lot of our clients. Cloudways is another great option, but in this case, we went to Kinsta, and that was an easy fix. They'll handle migration for you. We could have done it, but it's always nice when someone else will do it for you, right? They do a great job. Crawl depth was a huge issue, so we immediately solved some of that by just changing the way the menu structure worked out. And then that new menu structure also really helped visitors kind of navigate the site better. We adjusted the categories. We had some categories had hundreds of posts, others had one or two. This was a little wonky because we had to wait till we deleted some content, but we knew we were going to delete some more content. And so kind of had to, make kind of compromise in the middle there and just wait until we deleted the first round of content and then adjust the categories, knowing we were probably going to have to come back and adjust again. This handy dandy WP sheet editor does it. So you can edit those tasks in, edit those categories, in spreadsheets. And then you import that into WordPress rather than trying to get creative with 4,000 URLs and categories inside the WordPress app or software. Didn't have an SEO plugin. We prefer Rank Math. There's a bunch of good ones out there. You got Yoast as well, and a few others. But immediately Rank Math, we kind of did our standard setup for it. We use Rank Math Pro, well worth the money in my opinion. And so, it helps you out with a lot of things. I won't go into all of this. This is not a Rank Math tutorial, but some things we love to use it for is, individual page level schema, breadcrumbs, setting up a lot of different things. So won't go into that now, but that's what we did. It did not have one of those. We also had to update the footer. It was out of date and just did not have much information. I love putting as many EEAT elements into the footer as possible. That's a great area for you to kind of work in a lot of navigationally focused elements that check those boxes. So we did get a lot of that in there. The About page. So this is interesting. A lot of us, when we are working with smaller niche websites, right? Well, the About page is tough because we don't, if we're being honest, we don't really have a ton of authority in the space we're in, at least not yet. And this was entirely different. This website had a ton of authority in the space it was in. This website was really interesting because it was actually one of the go-to authorities in the niche. It had a lot of trust, and we just had to make sure to convey it because it wasn't being conveyed on the About page. So it reminds me of when we work with clients at our agency, and they'll come to us and they'll have just terrible EAT signals on their website, but then you dive into it and you realize oh my gosh, these guys are very much experts in their space. And so at the agency, we're always trying to take the expertise that someone or some business has and make sure that it's shown as prolifically and as crawlable as possible. And that's almost the opposite with a niche website, right? You're trying to make the most out of what little bit of EAT you have. So again, this was more like an agency client where they have all this EAT. This site had a bunch of EAT. So we really went about, here's a About page design layout. This is not the only way to do it, obviously. It's just a good example for you. Trying to really feature not only the website and the history of the website and what makes it such a strong player in the niche, but also a lot of authors, a lot of experts that contributed over the years, and really trying to highlight those experts and those authors. Speaking of authors, they were utilizing the native WordPress taxonomy, but didn't have a bio, didn't have any text about who they were. And so, again, we kind of went through and made sure to add an author bio to each of them. We made sure to mark that up with relevant author schema. We made sure to tie that back to the about post, and then work those author bios into the post that they were authors of. So I talked about deleting content above, and I've already gone through why we had to delete a bunch of content. But in the end, after all was said and done, and again, we went through several rounds of deleting, we moved 3,138 articles over to draft. That was an easy one to go find because I just had to go in this morning, and check the drafts section. And my goodness, there was a lot of content that we ended up deleting. Here's our process for kind of evaluating that. Number one, delete in 410. So if you have if we determine that it's something we need to delete and you have 0 backlinks, then we will go ahead and give the 410 distinction. And that tells Google crawlers that the content is permanently deleted. They don't need to attempt to crawl it again. Delete in 301, well, that's a little different. If it has backlinks that we like and want to kind of maintain, we'll set up a 301 redirect to preserve the backlink benefit. And then, 301 it to a relevant article that we are keeping. So yeah, with, as I say here, with 3,000 articles gone, we now had to update any internal links that were pointing to those 410 pages. And while you're in there, you might as well fix the internal links for the 301 redirects to the final destination. So we were able to use Link Whisper for some of that, which sped things up quite a bit, but it still is, that's a lot of articles to have to go through and redo internal linking for and stuff. So article updates. So as I mentioned, that was an opportunity that we had for this website. In reality, there were only about 54 articles that looked like we could turn them into something that matched a search intent, right? And a little bit lower than we were hoping for. I was hoping for several hundred. But look, again, I already outlined for you how the website was done in conception. And so there's a reason why not much was rankable. It just wasn't written about topics that were going to last, that were going to be evergreen. So we kept the URL, but pretty much had to republish an entirely new article about the topic that it was ranking for. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you get these old articles. Heck, sometimes articles on a website you made, they're just old and you've learned a lot and you've realized search intent has changed and it's just easier to rewrite the article than it is to try to modify it. So we knew a lot about this website's design because we'd helped migrate it, but that doesn't mean we liked the design much. We were kind of handed the design that we were told to migrate. And it was not great. We decided to keep it though, because a lot of work had been put into it. And with how old the site was, it wasn't something that we wanted to, at this time, do a huge theme, migration, all that. Again, that's a big process. It doesn't seem like it is on paper, but we've done enough of them to where it always has a little bit that gets added to it every time, right? And so again, it wasn't one of these things where we necessarily liked the theme, but we decided to stick with it because we had bigger fish to fry, right? Bigger problems to focus on. However, the homepage was something we were not willing to keep. The old homepage, as you can tell, was very, very thin. It featured a large navigation menu that we did end up keeping, but then a very old school image block and content block, but the content block had very minimal text, a couple article URLs, big banner ad, and that's it. It could be seen almost on one page above the fold. So we did switch to more of a newspaper style layout. We knew our content plan had dictated we're going to be publishing a lot of content on this website. And so we did switch to a homepage layout that almost newspaper-like, and we were able to also work in a sidebar where we knew we could feature some of those vendors that were paying us money, and we could work banner ads in recent articles and really get a lot more on the page. And so this went on for a while, right? This wasn't the only homepage. It kept going down with more articles and more new content that we were publishing on the site. Let's talk about our ongoing content push. So several months into the acquisition, we had finally gotten the bulk of those tech fixes and repairs done. It did take us several months, right? This isn't the only thing we're doing at the agency. This is one of many things. We have lots and lots of clients we're tending to every month. And so the team, does do this stuff a little bit piecemeal. This was a big focus for us, but it isn't something that we, that's the only thing we do. We'd outlined the various topical silos that we were going to pursue in the content plan. That's one of the things that we do. And we felt pretty confident that with a mid-level, domain power, domain strength, right, DR56, we felt pretty comfortable that we could target most of the keywords. So even if they were competitive, we decided we're going to go after most of them anyways. So we started by targeting those high opportunity keywords. What do I mean by high opportunity? So, from buyer intent topics or high level, high volume cornerstone content, there were some keywords that we just wanted to go for right away. How do I define that? Well, high priority keywords are, the best way I know to put it is that these are the keywords that your website should be ranking for, but it isn't. So when you think about a website that's an authority in the space, it's a website that should be ranking for something, right? And if it isn't, I would designate that as a high priority keyword. And again, with our website, because we had kind of a nice mid-range DR, we decided to go after those. And so that was the first that we were publishing. We got most of those out of plugging competitors into content gap analysis on Ahrefs and seeing what our competitors rank for consistently, like maybe many of those competitors rank for that we don't, right? And so if like 3 or 4 other competitors have an article on something and they rank in the top 10 and you don't even have an article on it, that's what I would call a high priority keyword. Topical silos. So, I won't get into all of it. We've talked a lot about it over the years. Topical authority is just so important in today's Google game. Yes, it's a buzzword. Yes, it's overused, but the idea of topical authority is massively important nowadays, especially if you're not one of these, DR90 sites that publishes, 25 articles a day. I won't mention those by name, but you know what I'm talking about. So the site had topical authority, but it wasn't from a content perspective. Had a lot of really good links that helped create its authority. It had been around a long time. The Age had helped create some authority in it, but it wasn't because of its ranking content. So after our content plan, we had identified 4 main topical silos. And each of these silos had hundreds and hundreds of keywords that we could write about. Many of those came from that content gap analysis from Ahrefs. Many others we use Lowfruits to find. So Lowfruits is really good at identifying what we would call supporting content, right? It's a lot of questions. It's a lot of people also ask. It's a lot of these things that you then have to kind of craft into which one of these do I write an article about and which one do I just include in an article. So there's a lot of that, but they also do a great job showcasing what the big opportunities are. So I love Lowfruits for what they do with how they visually showcase it. Hey, I'm going to admit I'm a data nerd. I love spreadsheets. Also ex-photographer, visual guy. So, they really kind of blend the best of both worlds in my opinion. But when you take these different keyword research methodologies and you blend them together, that's where you really harness the value of creating like a real content plan. And so we used keyword research from Ahrefs. We use keyword research from Lowfruits. We do use other methods, although the 2 primary ones that we used for this site were those 2 that I just went through. And again, the concept here is to take say a cornerstone page on your website, and a cornerstone page could just be like a really high volume, important piece of content that is a little bit broader in nature. And then in order to build that topical authority up around it, we write a lot of supporting content. And so a lot of times the Lowfruit topics end up being the supporting content, where the cornerstone article might be a larger one we found through, say, a content gap analysis or something. And then we're going to make sure we internally link those all together to pass that authority over to that cornerstone article. And that cornerstone article can really help pass authority on to, say, a page you want to make money from. So maybe a buying guide, or if you're a business, maybe your service page or something like that. So we'll really utilize internal linking to pass a lot of that authority and maybe even link juice on to the cornerstone article and the revenue page. So here is the cadence that we went through in the first year of publishing. You can see that in January and February and even into March, we were really ramping up our content production. So we didn't really publish a lot of content. You can reference all the tech debt we had to fix is the reason why. But by April, we were off to the races, publishing 38 articles. In May, that first year, we did hit our peak of 77 articles and 106,000 words. And we carried that through. And by the end of the year, we were tapering off a bit. We'll talk about that in a little bit. As we moved into 2022, you can see that we're really in that new cadence, that new publishing schedule of about 10 per month. And, it does ebb and flow a little bit. I mean, you see a month of 6, you see a month of 13. Again, this is just our team works on this as they have time. They usually have time as long as we prioritize it, but client needs kind of always come first. So that's the balance with how we do it and how we're going about building these websites of ours. They're a bit on the side of our agency. One thing we tend to always invest in, and we certainly did in this website is custom graphics and or images. Some of the articles were how-to in nature, and that just works really, really well for custom graphics, right? You can visually highlight each of the steps or each of the parts of the process for the how-to informational articles. Others were more practical in nature, and so those we would take custom images of people using various products. Just as an aside, like graphics, custom images, like they don't have to be super fancy to be helpful. Obviously, we all love when we go to those really well-branded sites and they just have some slick, well-designed graphics. But out of the gate, you don't necessarily have to go that in depth. Screenshots with arrows, quick images that showcase what you're doing. It doesn't have to be over the top. I used to be a professional photographer, so I guess I'm a little biased there. I thought it's probably a little bit easier for me to create images and graphics. But if you do need help with that, we do have a course on that can help out like the average layperson take really good photos pretty quickly with just their iPhone or their smartphone. What are some additional elements we did? Well, we talked a bit about email, but we got an email list. The email list was 1,857 people, but the way they were using it wasn't very good. Basically, every time a blog post would go live, it would automatically email the entire list. We wouldn't consider that best practice right now. It did keep engagement somewhat high, and but they weren't publishing very many blog posts either, so they weren't emailing them that much. So what we did, sign up, join the newsletter, as I said there. Like no one ever does that. So we made the following changes. We first off eliminated that auto send. Didn't really like that. We knew we'd be publishing a ton of content. We didn't want people getting 3 emails a day about it. We switched email providers. MailerLite's a great option if you're looking for something like cheap and just kind of bare bones for your content site. We use MailerLite for Weekend Growth, so chances are you might have gotten an email about this video from Weekend Growth. It's really simple. We added a pop-up to all the blog posts offering about, we say here 50 niche relevant tips. Basically, we just took a couple popular blog posts, put them together into one big guide, took it over to Canva, turned it into an ebook, gave people an option to download that in exchange for their first name and their email address. Then we created just a really simple autoresponder sequence from the top most popular blog posts, sent it out over 6 emails. Again, this isn't great, right? Like I would want to spend a lot more time building out a nice email funnel, but we didn't really have much to sell. We didn't really know what to put in there yet. And again, and this is what I always tell people, like the most important thing is to get started, because if you wait and you're ready, maybe 6, 9, 12 months down the road to start, incorporating email marketing, well, you haven't done it yet. So you have to wait until you get email addresses in the door. Instead, if you start collecting email addresses now with a generic but somewhat attractive offer, you can build that up. You don't just want to send them to a dead list though, right? Like build up, even if it's just like the top blog posts, start sending them some emails so you can get them engaged and keep them engaged. And then when you need that email list down the road, at least you've begun building it and you have something to go to. We'll see how that's a factor in this exact website down the road. Now, internal linking, there's several different ways to go about this, and I wanted to kind of expose this a bit. When you're building out a topical silo, you can add internal links as you go or wait till the end. Obviously, it's better to add as you go because you're getting that internal link right away. But the problem is when you write that first article in the topical silo, chances are there's nothing to internally link to because it's the first article. By the time you get to, say, article number 10, there's 9 other articles, probably a couple articles there to choose from. By article 50, there's a ton. But what happens is that you end up with the latter half of the articles in the topical silo. Well, they have a lot of internal links, right? But if you don't go back to those first 10, 15, sometimes even 20 articles, they might not have enough internal links. And so you end up kind of getting disproportionate internal link equity throughout the website. So we go and we insert internal links as we go, but then we also go back every 10 to 15 articles and add more internal links, because as you go, you get more relevant internal link opportunities because you publish more specific content, and you got to go back and add internal links to those first ones. So in a perfect world, you're doing it as you go and you're going back and updating in spurts. So anyways, Link Whisper makes this super easy. I've talked about Link Whisper in the past. All right, monetization. I do think that's kind of the fun part. So this website's fun because it has a real wide array of ways we monetize. So let's walk through each of them and I can kind of talk about it. So I put Amazon first. Yeah, we use Amazon affiliates for our buying guides. Don't love using Amazon affiliates because the commission is so low. We did test a few private affiliate networks. I mentioned that in the threats because there's always a chance that when you start testing private affiliate networks that they don't really work out all that well. And in this case, they did convert and we did get paid higher commissions, but the conversion rate on these private affiliate networks was not high enough to overcome the Amazon conversion rate. In other words, yeah, we made lower commissions from Amazon, but the conversion rate was so much higher and you get paid on everything that they buy in their cart. So we ended up keeping Amazon, but we did test it. We did test having multiple ones. We might go back and add in the option to have that private affiliate network because I know that is something that in the product review updates, Google has really stipulated they want. Does it matter yet? I couldn't comment on that. But down the road, if that's what they want, they're probably going to figure out a way to get there. So we use AAWP right now, not married to them. They're nice. Just use a plugin that pulls the API data. There's a lot of good ones out there. We're going to be testing a couple others. They're good. They're fine. AdThrive. So we use ads on the site. We did not in the first year or so. I think it took us about 14 or 15 months to get to the point where the site had enough traffic that we wanted to put ads on it. The AdThrive would fall into a premium ad network like an AdThrive, a Mediavine, and a Zoic. They're all great, in my opinion. They're all great for certain circumstances, right? We have websites in all three of them. I have relationships with all three of them, and I think that there's a use case for each of them. If you don't have much traffic, take a look at a Zoic because they're the only ones that don't have a minimum threshold. When we were able to get ads on the site, we started making a couple extra $1,000 almost immediately because we had that 30 or 40,000 page views when we put it on there. We do sell other ads on the site. So to companies in the space, we do sell ad. It's not just ads, but we also have relationships where we sell email spots. You can sponsor an email. You can have your company included in an email, sponsored posts, all sorts of stuff. So we do sell a decent amount of that. And you'll see that when we bought the site, first off, that was the only driver of revenue. And even as we get lower, you'll see in our monetization kind of roundup, like that still makes up the number one section of monetization of revenue. And so we do a really good job with it. We could do better, of course. Affiliates. So I talked about how we don't really have private affiliate offers in our buying guides, but we do send out emails to our list several times a month and we include various affiliate offers in those. There are a few pages on the website that have specific private affiliate relationships, and those do well on specific pages, but in our buying guides, they didn't move the needle enough. A course. We purchased a course. We'll talk about that a little bit more later as well, but we purchased a course from a really well-respected professional in the niche, and we sell that through an email funnel and also by putting it on, appropriate, relevant pages on the website. That does make us money. It's really great. An ebook. Right towards the tail end of last year, we put together a couple of ebooks and we started selling those. We just sold those as a one-off blast, on Black Friday, and we haven't really done a great job of incorporating them everywhere else, but we do have an email funnel that we're launching, so we should see that pick up a little bit more later. So here's a breakdown from the last 6 months of how much as a percentage of the revenue comes from each of these channels. To me, this is like the most valuable graph. I could have shown you like dollars or things like that, but the thing about this is that it's really indicative that I think a lot of people who only focus on, say, Amazon affiliate and a premium ad network are leaving a lot of revenue on the table. And this is kind of proof of that, right? If that were all we did, that would comprise 38% of our revenue. At its peak, the website made just over $9,000. And so 38% of the revenue is only like $3,200, $3,300. We would have been leaving almost $6,000 on the table. You can see the predominant driver of income, although it's still not half, is selling ad space, whether on the website, whether in email, whether through sponsored posts or a variety of other things to companies in the area. And these aren't like guest posts, by the way. These are like sponsored email blasts from companies that are super relevant to the audience, to the niche. Affiliate does not make up much. So, the affiliates earnings we make from email or those kind of things does not make up much. The course is nearing 10%, which is not bad at all. The course is making us on average, nearing $1,000 a month, $500 to $1,000 a month. And I think we're continuing to tweak the email funnel to try to get better CRO, conversion rate optimization. The ebook was just launched, so I expect that to increase a bit, but ebooks are usually not as popular and not as big a revenue drivers as courses. But again, I really like this chart here because it really does show that, hey, if you're just doing Amazon, just doing a premium ad network, or maybe you're only doing one of them, you're only doing Amazon. Like if you're just doing Amazon affiliates for this website, that's basically 10% of the revenue for this site. So there's so much more. The good news is we expect a lot of this to increase, right? Traffic is increasing exponentially. And so that should help everything. Like all ships rise in that kind of a rising tide. I mentioned we barely launched the ebook, so we should see that come on to play a little bit more. All right, let's wrap up here by going through our timeline. So we've talked about what we've done, but we haven't really talked about when it was done and how it affected things. So we purchased the site on January 1st of 2021. And we spent the first couple of months, like we said, just focusing on tech repairs and getting the whole site cleaned up. It was a mess. So we were starting to get that content published by March, but really not much of a ramp up yet. Traffic did go up a little bit, 16%. As you'll see, though, it was very temporary. Revenue got a bump in February. I think that was because we kind of went out and did a big promotion to introduce ourselves as the new owners, but you can tell it kind of went right back down to where it normally was the next month. So Q2 in 2021, we went into full content mode, and that's really what Q2 was all about. So you can see we ramped up from 38 to 77 and 75 articles a month, and so that's we're publishing on the site like 2.5 articles live every day of the month, and we're doing that for several months in a row. We did start to build a few backlinks just to some of the content that we thought would benefit from it. Page views remained unchanged. Matter of fact, dropped, to be honest with you. Revenue did start to go up a little bit, but that was the start of what we realized was a long road ahead. When you make a bunch of tech repairs on the site, I find it kind of goes one of two ways in terms of traffic. Yeah, long term, it's good for the site, and it's promoting a much better experience for both the user and for Google. But in the short term, it can sometimes have a nice big bounce, or it sometimes can actually create some retraction. And certainly for this website, you will see we just sat and waited forever for Google to give us some love. Q3 traffic remained unchanged heading into the second half of 2021. So going into July, we made the decision to pull back and not publish 75 a month, but we went down to about 30 a month, so about one a day. And then by September, we were pulling back down to just 10 a month. Traffic was flat. As you can see, we're still stuck at that $20,000 mark. Now revenue's going up, and that's because we're getting better at ranking some of the buying guides, although not much. I mean, the traffic isn't going up much, but a few buying guides are ranking, and just people are spending more in Q3. It's just a much more spend happy type of quarter for consumers. But page views are just flat. Starting to get very concerning as we near September, and the page views are basically dead on the same as they were in January. Why did we move down in terms of our publishing cadence? Well, we had other projects that we started to take on at this time, other websites that we'd either acquired or started, and they were getting a higher ROI. And so it's tough because we still really believed in the project. I will say that. We had not lost any faith or hope on this. It was just taking longer than we had hoped. But you also have to balance other projects that are returning a higher investment. It's a really tough balance to make because this is such a long game, this SEO game, but you also have to make sure that you don't just play for the forever game and you do go after the stuff that's working right now. So we did drop down to those 10 articles a month. By Q4, now we're starting to get a little, I don't know about worried, maybe frustrated. Look at page views, they're still pretty much unchanged. A couple things did happen in Q4 that were really positive though. We're still publishing about 10 articles a month. I don't know what happened in October. It looks like we probably we wrote them, but we were late to publish them, and then we made up for it in November. We did buy that course in October of 2021, and then we immediately launched it to our list in October and got a nice $2,000 bump from that. Launched it again on Black Friday, got another $1,500 bump on that. And so that gave us some nice numbers for Q4. So traffic was up maybe 13%, still nowhere near where we wanted it to be, but at least we had experienced a bit of a revenue bump. Okay, Q1 2022. We've owned the site for a year and it's not where we want it to be. We published 3,000 articles. We've updated 54 articles. We spent dozens of hours fixing the website, maybe even into near the 100 hours. I don't know. I could go back and look. It wasn't 100, but it wasn't a dozen, 30, 40. We published 307. Did I say we published 3,000? We deleted 3,000 articles, updated 54 articles, published 317 articles, which was almost 500,000 words, and built 46 backlinks. Yet, year over year, January 2022 was only up 21%. We hadn't lost hope, but we were bummed. So the only really good news that came out of Q1 was that we did qualify for AdThrive. There must have been a 30-day period in there in February or March where we had a 30,000 page view kind of 30-day period that we were able to sneak it in. Don't want to say we snuck it in, but you know what I mean. And so that was great. That led to that nice revenue bump there in March. Was really as a result of getting ads on the site. But anyways, Q2 2022. I mean, we kind of got to the 30,000 page view number in March, just shy of it, and we kind of stayed there. Then the May 2022 update hit, and that was really a big update. And while we didn't get hit in the initial period in May, in June there was a bunch of turbulence that followed that update. And for 2 weeks, our site took a massive hit, like an 80% downgrade in organic traffic. That was pretty concerning. It did rebound. It did bounce back. The whole thing did get reversed, which a lot of sites saw. But I mean, we're pretty frustrated. We're 18 months in now. We've added darn near 400 pieces of content. It's pretty good content. We would have expected after 18 months for this site to rebound. But it's important to keep in mind, like, this is an old site that had not been showing Google very good signals for a very long time. Yeah, it had a good backlink profile. Yeah, it had age, but it was clear that Google really did not like what this site was producing. And we were just having the darndest of times trying to get Google to understand what we were doing and that we were pretty high in quality. That's how it goes sometimes. Like, the older the site you buy, and I don't think we were experts at restarting, at picking the site back up again. I will say that, like, there are strategies that I know about that you can really go in and sharpshoot getting a site kind of revitalized. We didn't do that at this point. I wish we'd had, right? I wish we had, because we published so much content, spent so much time and money on this, still weren't really seeing the results. Q3. All right. Well, enough sad talk. Q3 things started to change finally. By the time that we finished Q3, traffic was up to 50,000 page views. So from when we bought it at 20,000, from the last quarter at 30,000, now up to 50,000, we're starting to see a little bit of that hockey stick, and it was going right into Q4, which is the kind of the heavy sales season. Revenue was up too. So September closed at just $30 shy of $5,000. Q4 went very well. We introduced a couple of new ideas during this quarter. We did some outbound sales to vendors, and this is where the vendor sales really started to pick up for us. We had done some promotions here and there, but as you can see, it really wasn't a big bump. But we really got serious about our outbound sales, and we were adding about $2,000 in October and $1,000 in November, and then almost $3,500 in December through banner ads, email sponsorships. We ran a 1-year anniversary promotion for the course we purchased. That added $1,500 in revenue. We launched the paid ebook we talked about already on Black Friday. That added almost $1,500 in revenue. Organic traffic had grown so much, it came in just shy of 100,000 page views in December. And because of the higher RPMs and the buying time of year, that led to an increase in affiliate sales, and it also led to, obviously, an increase in what we made from AdThrive. Okay, so where are we at? Let's wrap this up. This video is being made right around the same time the case study was published, about March 2023. And so the average revenue over the past 5 months has been about $7,600. If you use a 35 to 40x multiple, you're looking at $275,000 to $300,000 is what the site is worth. I tend to think it would command a higher multiple because it's got a very diversified set of income streams. That equals less risk, and multiples are really primarily based on the risk factor of the asset that people are buying. This website has less risk, so in theory it would command a higher multiple. Again, I'm just extrapolating. It's got a lot of runway still to grow. So traffic continues to grow month over month. We can see that in January, traffic went to 134,000 page views. February, 151,000 page views. It's early March, early to mid-March, and it's already on pace to do around 200,000 page views this month, maybe more if we continue at the growing phase. Also, ad RPMs are at their lowest in January, February, and even into March to some degree. And so you look at what the site could have made maybe last year in October and November if it had the page views that it has now, right? So I'm really excited about what's coming up for this site, and we'll see. What are we going to do going forward? In total honesty, we'd like to sell this site, but we're not in a hurry to sell it. If somebody came in with a good offer and it was the right situation soon, we'd probably look at that, but we aren't really planning on taking our foot off the gas. We've been publishing about 10 articles a month. We'll probably increase that a bit now that we've really seen the page views spike. And really, as we've been publishing like those 10 articles a month, like they rank almost instantly. They're on the first page of Google usually within a couple of days. So that's a good sign you're kind of entering this real true authority mode. And, it's good to put gas on the fire in those situations. I think this site represents a really good opportunity for a buyer, though. It's got about 1,000 articles of really well optimized content at this point. Super engaged email list. We've gotten up to about 5,000 people. It's not many, right? But it's a pretty niche down market. The open rates are about 35 to 45% though. And it's a super engaged email list that buys. I've had email lists on other sites where people open and they click, but they don't buy, right? Like for whatever reason, they just don't buy. Could be something I was doing wrong in the way that I was selling to them, but also, having an email list where when you send out a buying opportunity, people buy from it. And we've seen that over and over and over again in the course sales, in the affiliate offers we make, in the ebook that we produced. Really valuable email list. We have an online video course that we purchased, written by or produced by a known expert in the niche. And it includes a conversion optimized email funnel that does convert every single month. We launched several ebook products. We have not seen those into fruition of what their revenue could be, but they're there and ready to sell. We have established relationships with companies in this niche. They've have a track record of spending money to get in front of this audience, and we have ongoing sales to show that. And then there's growth in monthly and yearly page views, traffic, revenue, profit, all these things. So that's this case study in a nutshell. I really, this one was exciting for me to make because so much of what we talk about in SEO is perseverance, patience, right? Like it's a long play. I'll tell you, I was not ready for the long play on this one. You think you're buying a site that has a lot of age to it and has a decent DR, right? Like a decent authority level. With some great backlinks, like you think you're going to get it revitalized quicker. Looking back on it, I'm sure there's some things that we could have done a little bit differently to revitalize it faster. Perhaps the nature of how we do websites, where it's secondary to our agency at 201 Creative, perhaps that didn't help us here, right? But nonetheless, it is growing. It is proof that the model and the approach does work. But boy, what a lesson in patience and perseverance. I hope you enjoyed this case study. If you want to see more like this, please let me know. If you can, like and subscribe to the channel. That does help. Not many people on this channel yet because I just started it. Hope to do more of these in the future. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll try to answer them here and there as I get time. Thanks so much. Good luck on your website building.